guys, welcome to the Student of Money Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Niemeyer. The mission of Student of Money is to connect listeners like you to a community of like-minded individuals to help you achieve your goal of financial freedom through entrepreneurship, investing, real estate, and personal development. This is episode 43. All right, guys, this week we got a really important guest, a friend of mine that I met in a mastermind out in Salt Lake City, Utah, that's actually from right here in Iowa. His name is Rob Hach of Buffalo Ridge Capital. What makes Rob unique is he's a second-generation business owner in the wind and solar panel renewable energy business. If you've ever thought about putting solar panels or renewable energy in your business, or if you're looking at investing into renewable energy right here in the state of Iowa, you're going to want to check this out. Let's get going. So, Rob, welcome to the Student of Money Podcast.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate being here.
Hey, great. I'm glad we could get together. I'm glad I could get you on the show. I really love what you're doing. I want to hear more about it. I want our audience to hear more about it. So for the people that are listening and maybe watching on YouTube and that aren't familiar with you, give me a little bit about your background and your history.
I'm a second generation renewable energy developer, which means that I followed my dad into this industry, into wind development and solar development. So I've been in the industry for 29 years. Which sounds like would be a veteran. I'm only 47 years old, but right out of high school, Dad brought in all of his kids into the industry. And so I've been developing, overall, our family has developed about $12 billion worth of renewable energy projects over the last 40 years.
And that's both wind and solar, correct?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of wind farms, probably the majority, probably 99% of that has been wind. Wind farms, big wind farms for different utilities, and then 1% has been in solar. Solar is absolutely the upcoming generation because you can plug it in a lot closer to the electric load, whereas wind turbines are going to be in cornfields a little bit further away from the electric load. So solar is definitely a space to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree. And obviously the government's pushing it. They want to get as much out there as possible. You know, everything's green energy. I put my name on the list for the F-150 Lightning for an EV vehicle. And of course, there's tax incentives for those as well. I'm assuming for a business or municipality or anyone that wants to put in wind or solar, that there's probably a lot of tax advantages out there as well, correct?
Oh, absolutely. The incentives are really very favorable for projects right now. And some of the things that I hear quite often, the naysayers, oh, it wouldn't work without the incentives. All energy has been incentivized. We like low cost energy because that really drives our economy. So there's incentivization regardless of what it is. We're all in the same boat. If it's nuclear, coal, or oil, or whatever it is. We want to get generation electricity to our customers as low cost as possible. And so that requires spending money in order to get a tax credit to go against your tax bill. So yes, it's very favorable at this time. And, if we got some time, I can go into all the incentives that are available at this time, but it is incredible. And we've never had as good of incentives as we do right now. So this is the best time to be in renewable energy.
Yeah, I agree. Energy and cheap access to energy is what we're going to need to be able to produce things in order to be entrepreneurs and grow businesses and to provide goods and services. So the ability to provide cheap energy, I know it's changed quite a bit just because I never really saw wind farms until you're located up in Northwest Iowa around Storm Lake, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we're located on Buffalo Ridge, which ironically is the name of our investment fund. And what the anomaly is, and you really can't see it until you're off the ridge, but it is the rise in elevation between North Dakota and almost to Des Moines. So the ridge starts in North Dakota, runs through South Dakota, southwest Minnesota, through northwest Iowa, and then really kind of starts to flatten out near Des Moines, and is from some of the glaciers that came through, created this upturn in the soil and created a ridge that's very long. And that ridge creates an uplift of wind or a very exceptional area for installing wind turbines. So there's somewhere around 9,000 wind turbines that start in North Dakota on this ridge and head down to down to Des Moines. So a lot of turbines on this Buffalo Ridge.
Yeah. So like when I go up Interstate 35 from Des Moines and maybe up to Minneapolis, things like that, you know, you start to see those windmills. And of course I ride RAGBRAI across the state of Iowa, and I'm just know that Northwest Iowa has had tons and tons of windmills. And now we're starting to see them in Eastern Iowa, and Kirkwood Community College has a big windmill, and they actually have a program for people that want to do windmills and the engineering on it and the tech side of that business. So it's really booming. And then of course the solar part is really picking up as well. You can have solar everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think there's solar on some of the dormitories there in Kirkwood as well, correct? Some of the apartments I've been through.
Yeah. So one of the things about student housing, kind of back to that real estate that I'm familiar with, that typically they provide utilities for student housing. So being able to provide electricity in a cheap format, and I would say kudos to Haverkamp Property Management out of Ames at Iowa State. They are the ones that own the ones here in Cedar Rapids out of Kirkwood, and they started putting out those solar panels both at Iowa State and here at Kirkwood on top of their roofs. And then I know some other business owners that got some solar from you as well here in Cedar Rapids. So you're really starting to see it. And of course, it's also in the news here because they shut down the Duane Arnold nuclear power plant, and now they want to do 3,000 acres of solar panels around that area and around the Coggin area. So these solar panel farms are coming up all over, as well as the wind energy. And then I always thought, a few years ago that, why aren't these farmers tapping into this? There has to be a program out there. Everybody that's got a farm really should have, a windmill and solar panels and things of that sort. So in the ag industry, I would think it would be highly advantageous to do so.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The majority of our customers are hog producers, because right now the hog producers, they're having a little bit tough run in the market right now. The pricing is below their cost. And so they're having a little bit of a hard time, but that's farming as well. It's up, it's down, it's up and down, depending on commodities and other things that impact. And so when a hog farmer or just a farmer in general, they can impact their bottom line by taking something that's an expense, their electric bill. They're going to pay it no matter what. And they get to take that electric bill off of their profit and loss statement and now put it on their balance sheet as an asset. So their farm just increased $100,000, $200,000 more in value because they bought an asset, a solar project, installed that asset, got some tax incentives in order to put it into place. Now they've reduced their electric bill. And we're seeing farms that were spending $3,000 up to $3,000, $4,000 a month in electric bill. And once they put in their own generation, and they're going to zero or bare minimum the metering cost. So whatever it is to be connected to their utility, they're still paying that fee. But their cost of energy went from $3,000 a month to zero. So it's when farmers are having to deal with variable prices of anhydrous and variable prices of seed corn and for other fertilizer, this is something that they can predict, that they own, and there won't be any variability in the price of their solar power 100 years from now, because the cost of the sun is going to still be zero. So it's a way for farmers to be able to put an asset on their farm and be able to have something that's predictable. And in an industry that is really unpredictable, you have to deal with fluctuations all of the time.
They do, but farmers are really good at taking a look at this and crunching the numbers, because ultimately farming is a business just like anything else. And I'm really amazed these farmers out there that really know the business of farming, and they know what it means to plant a seed and then to reap from what they sow, essentially, right? So when they know it costs so much, to plant a seed and then for it and then to harvest later down the road. They got that very calculated. So I could see that they would be very smart. And like you said, especially I know the hog farming where they have to have fans going constantly in those pens. I know some people that are turkey farmers that are same thing, chicken, where they get these large amounts and they have to raise them in a short amount of time. And in the summertime, like when we're going on rag, Brian, they're with me, riding along with me. They're worried about the heat killing off their turkeys and killing off the chickens and the produce, things like that, because it's so hot. They consume so much electricity with fan movements and keeping them cool, so that they can survive the hot Iowa winters.
Yeah. Yep. No, that is very true. And the thing that's really interesting, so we do have a lot of customers that are converting, and the farmers are a great one. The other one that's really good are landlords, especially the business owners that have their real estate separate from their business, probably 99, hopefully. If you've had any good tax advisors and any good attorneys, that you separate your real estate from your operating entity. And so any of those operating entities will be paying rent to the landlord, and hopefully that should be you. And those landlords are then going to get the tax incentives. They're also going to get revenue from their operating entity and be able to make more money from their operating company. So there's a lot of opportunities, not just farmers. We have a number of customers in the Cedar Rapids areas that are business owners, use their roof space in order to put solar on their business and pick up another source of income.
Yes, and we've been talking about a lot on our show and about on my monthly seminars. We've been talking a lot about depreciation schedules and accelerated depreciation and cost segregation studies. Do you know how many years the solar and wind products are depreciated? Are they a 5, 7, 15, or what's the normal depreciation on those?
We get accelerated depreciation, and it's going to be changed frequently. And so make sure you're checking your local depreciation codes for, I mean, it's going to be a state level and federal level on that depreciation.
Mhm.
State level, we get makers depreciation. So we get a big chunk of the depreciation up front, and then they got a straight line. Well, it's not exactly straight line, but a declining balance for 5 years following that. So there is some accelerated depreciation that goes along with the asset purchase.
Yeah. And so for business owners that maybe make a lot of money and have a lot of income coming in, and they want to be able to find out what's my tax advantage to be able to offset this income so that I don't have to pay my silent partner, Uncle Sam, to be able to basically take the profits from that business and reinvest that back into solar panels and solar energy. And then to be able to take all of those depreciations, which offsets that income, those are the huge tax advantages. And that's not even really talking about the what the government's giving you on top of that for putting solar in. So you're right. And then once those assets are paid for, now you're getting all of that free sunshine and that free energy coming in. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things people always bring up is the battery technology. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Batteries come along really fast. Some places it's really needed depending on the utility. But the battery is coming to the point where you can see it everywhere. Teslas and Nissan Leafs and Chevy Bolts. You're seeing it used in transportation quite frequently, and so it's available and the opportunity is there. Are we installing a lot? No, not necessarily, because we're still waiting for the price point to come into line where it's needed. It's important. So we have done some off-grid cabins and some other things that are fun and unique. But the battery technology is coming along quickly, and it'll provide that. The sun doesn't shine all the time, and the wind doesn't blow all the time. Yes, that's true. And we can very inexpensively put in battery power. But the case in point is that a nuclear power plant like the Neil
Yeah.
Dwayne
Palo.
Arnold,
Yeah.
yeah, Palo, yeah, Dwayne Arnold. They shut that down within 30 minutes when the derecho came through, and they never spun it back up. That's 1,000 megawatts of generation that was shut off like that, and pretty quick for a nuclear power plant, and they never spun it back up. And so there's an impact on a grid, but the thing that people don't understand is that the electric grid is very elastic. It can vary. We have system operators that can pull in other resources in order to compensate for 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant going offline and not coming back online. So if we have a cloud go over on someone's house, it's not going to be as much of an impact as a nuclear power plant going down and not being able to provide generation for the area. So the little bit of variability that we have in sun and the little bit of variability that we have in wind, we can compensate by forecasting, and then we have other generation sources in the grid. So it's exciting on what's happening, and that battery technology is coming along in order to make that that basically a shock absorber for the grid. And that's one of the things with that solar plant that's being built there in Palo, is they are going to do, as I understand it, last thing is 750 megawatts of solar generation and 250 megawatts of battery storage. So it's going to be one of the largest battery storage projects that I know of, but it's going to be able to have that predictability. Nuclear power was nice because it always ran no matter what, other than when big storms come through. And so we will be able to do that with solar, store the generation in batteries, and just distribute it at all times. And nuclear would actually produce generation at a negative price point, where solar can only, you can turn it on and off just like a light switch, and because it's that quick, where nuclear was always running. You couldn't just necessarily shut it down. So it is exciting with battery technology and how things are going. So,
but the majority, I would say, can you say the majority of the stuff you do, they don't include the battery yet, because that's a part of the expense. So you would say that most of the time when you're hooking them up, like for at night, for instance, they're pulling off the grid, but then during the day when the sun's up, it's basically reverses, and then you're providing into the grid, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, and of course, being in the industry for 29 years, you kind of hear all these negative things about what you're doing, and there's negative in every space, right?
Yeah.
But the things that I say, well, it's putting back into the grid, and the utility has to pay for it. But the utility isn't paying for generation. So if I put a solar system on your roof and it's overproducing, putting it on the grid, then all your neighbors are getting the benefit of your generation, and actually improves the quality of the electricity in your area because it smooths out the ripples.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's a very much a positive impact for all the neighbors around you when you put in your own generation, because when you're overproducing, they're getting to use that electricity, and the utility turns around and sells it to your neighbor. So when it goes onto the grid, they get it free from you and as a credit, and then they go down to your neighbor and then sell that electricity you put on the grid and sell it to your neighbor. So, as far as negatively impacting the grid, it's one of those, hey, tinfoil keeps you safe from radio waves. So wear a tinfoil hat, and right, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to change gears a little bit and say,
Yeah.
it sounds like you and your family have been doing solar for a very long time, and you have a business that does wind and solar. And then we actually met at a mastermind, and I had to go all the way to Salt Lake City, Utah, to run into another Iowa guy at a mastermind, right? And of course, we were both there about funds, and so let's shift gears a little bit about you started a fund, and like you said, it's called Buffalo Ridge Capital. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. What's really exciting about a fund, it solves a problem that I've been having in this industry, in the renewable energy industry, is that outside of Iowa, there's a lot of folks that understand the value of investing in renewable energy. And so we have a project at Grinnell College. It's an $8.1 million project. And we went around because Grinnell College has a $2.4 billion endowment. It's an incredible amount of money that's put into investments in order to keep that college running and operating. And we signed this contract with Grinnell College, and we went around the state of Iowa in order to find investors and finance partners in order to keep that money in Iowa. And we couldn't do it. I mean, for 9 months, we went around meeting with banks and insurance companies and everyone around in order to say, hey, guys, this is one of the most secure investments that you're going to be able to invest in. And it's predictable. And it was difficult. It was, we finally ended up out in Manhattan, signed a deal with Manhattan, and they're 1,200 miles away. And they don't see what the project looks like on a day-to-day basis, and they don't know who their customers are like we do. And so we ended up starting our own fund because it gives us an opportunity to have something very predictable. The sun's going to come up tomorrow, and if it doesn't, there's a lot of problems we have to deal with. The wind is going to come up tomorrow, and if it doesn't, we're going to have a lot of problems to deal with. So, it's some of those things that we can predict. The cost of that wind and solar is very predictable. You're not going to have OPEC squeezing the price of wind, and because they have an issue with us. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to deal with transportation issues of getting sun into the United States through some congested ports. We don't have to deal with that. The sun will come up, the wind will blow, and we know with forecasting tools when those events are going to happen. So it's very reliable. As I describe it to people, it is a mutual fund risk, very low risk investment, and it has a hedge fund rate of return. On average, we see 13 to 30% rate of return on some of our projects. And it depends on the utility and a number of other variables that are there. And I think with we need to rerun it with some of the new incentives that are involved. It's going to jump even higher than that, than what 13's on our low side. And I think in our portfolio we went as high as 38%. We don't broadcast those numbers because can you really believe a 38% rate of return on your fund? Warren Buffett on average hits 20%, right?
Right.
So, but these are things that are very predictable. In tax credits, depreciation, those are predictable, and some of the other those are predictable, and so very reliable place to be able to put money. And one of the things that I target is real estate investors because they understand an equivalent. They rent floor space at so much per month. We are renting electricity. We're selling electricity at so much per month, and we're going to get an ongoing revenue stream regardless of the month or the rain or the economy or a recession or an embargo, whatever it is, we're going to get, or a pandemic. Our project started construction during the middle of the pandemic, and Grinnell College still used 82% electricity, even though they had 0 students on campus or faculty. So 82% of their electric bill they still use no matter what. So very predictable. And that's real estate investors, I think, should be looking at this because it's a good hedge in their portfolio, because there's going to be, you're going to have a tenant, they're going to move out, they're going to leave holes in the wall. I mean, what things do you have to deal with your real estate, right? I mean, you know how it goes. So you put
yeah. No, I get it. And I guess this would be considered, is this a private equity fund? I mean, obviously it's a green energy fund because that's the business that you're in. But when you take a look at hedge funds, private equity, venture capital, real estate funds, this is really more of a private equity, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
That's the way it's structured. So, and we don't talk a lot on the shows about private placements, which is exactly what this is. This is a private placement that, the big boys play in this arena typically, right? The large corporations, the institutional grade investments. So in order to bring this down to a street level for someone, they're called private placements that people have the opportunity to invest in because they're not Exactly. There's public investments, which is going to be your stocks and bonds and Wall Street that you go to your broker, or you can go online to E-Trade or whatever it is and trade. So those are publicly traded securities. And then there's privately traded securities that are private placements. And that's exactly what this is. This is a private placement, and this is
Right.
a 506C, which
Right.
means we can talk about it publicly,
Right.
but there are restrictions on who can invest, correct?
Right. Accredited investors are the ones that we target. They are high net worth individuals or high net worth companies that are looking to invest in investments like this. One of the most popular investors in renewable energy is real estate companies. One of my dad's first projects he did was here in Storm Lake, and we had a Canadian insurance company invest in our project because it's a very predictable rate of return over a long period of time. And so they were very happy with an investment like this. So insurance companies are frequently investing in this because the more money they have deployed, the more policies they can turn around and then write for and get more insurance and people insured. So very secure for insurance companies. Also, people that want to have a reliable long-term revenue stream from this. We have a project that a retired pharmacist had invested in. I mean, they invested in our fund, and then we had an asset that he needed to offset a tax bill with. So then he went in and invested in one of our projects, and now is the owner. And it's got a revenue stream that's very predictable for the next 20 years. And he knows he's going to get it, and from the sale of electricity. Now we manage all those little details on our projects, and so because it's our expertise.
Right.
Now, one of the things that's interesting, sorry, Jeff, is that we are the only renewable energy fund in the state of Iowa. We did the research, and there's a number of different investment funds in Iowa, but we are the only one in Iowa, even though we're the number one in the nation for the amount of generation that comes from renewable energy. But we are probably the lowest in the nation for the investors that actually Iowans that own renewable energy. And we are making that opportunity through our fund to more Iowans.
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly right. And some people, when I take a look at what other funds and deals are out there, there's ethanol plants that some farmers might be familiar with, the casinos that they keep talking about here in Cedar Rapids. That actually is a fund that's made up of Cedar Rapids business people that are investing. But you're right, the typical investor for these big multi-million dollar deals are going to be institutional grade businesses. They might be insurance companies, because what do they do with your premiums? They turn around and invest them. That's exactly why Warren Buffett bought Geico and Berkshire Hathaway, is because what they want is they want your premiums that you give the company every month, so that they can turn around and invest that into deals like yours, so that they can get a fixed rate of return. And right here in the state of Iowa, things like IPERS, this is where they invest your retirement dollars, things of that sort. So by doing a private placement, we're able to take these bigger deals and make it available to people on Main Street that are accredited investors. Now, true, you do have to be accredited, which by definition is single. You have to make over $200,000 a year for the past 2 years, and reasonable expectations that you're going to make it next year. And if you're married, it's 300,000, or you need to have over $1 million in net worth, not including your personal residence. So, you do have to make the suitability standards and the income standards that the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, it says is out there. But if you meet those, then you can invest into these private placements and get the same returns where the big boys play. So, and that's exactly right for somebody right here in Iowa that can invest in Iowa in renewable energy.
Yep. Well, the other thing that's really interesting that people don't know is that they can use their 401k or their IRAs, some of their retirement vehicles that they're already using, in order to invest in an alternative investment like this. This fits in that area. And I personally have moved money. If anyone else has watched their 401ks or their retirement plans, just go boop, 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 boop. And I have to. And so I got tired of watching it. And so I've been investing in our own fund. I'm probably for fund managers, the fund managers that make the most money are the ones that are invested in their own fund, because they're making more money on the returns that they're getting from investing in their fund than just the management fees. So some of the best fund managers in the world are also some of the largest investors in their own fund.
Exactly right. I mean, I liquidated my 401k years ago and put it all into real estate. So I don't own any stocks. I don't own any bonds. I got cryptocurrencies. I've obviously have real estate. I have these things, and I talk about when to be focused and when to be diversified. So you certainly can. You can take your 401ks and your retirements, and you can do basically a rollover into what's called a self-directed IRA, because you have to have a third-party custodian that takes that money so that it never touches your hands, and that's how you keep it tax sheltered and tax deferred, because you can't touch your money until 59 and a half without a penalty. So there's companies out there that act as custodians that take care of that for us and invest that money. So then when so the cash that kicks out, the return for their investment, then goes right back into that custodian, correct?
Yeah. And it's all taken care of by professionals. And one of the things that, if you don't know if you're a accredited investor, you talk to your accountant or to your bank or whatever, and they'll be able to get you a letter that we need for accreditation. There are some that are already registered as accredited investors, and there's investor check that we have to go through with a 506C in order to verify that you're an accredited investor. But a lot of things that are out there in order to allow people to get into this, and it's a great place to be. I had two brothers that were on each side of an investment. The mom is a widow, and she sold a farm and had some tax liabilities and wanted to know what to do. The one son was a stockbroker, and the other son believed in renewable energy. And he said, "Mom, you're going to be able to see this. You're not going to see the stocks from Nike unless you go and buy the Nike shoe, but you're not going to see the Nike plant." Now we're investing in municipal projects that might be in their community or distillery or the school, and it'll be in their communities. And that's the thing that's really great. And the thing that I've seen over the years of developing wind and solar projects is that we're taking that money out of these communities, and it's gone. I mean, it went to New York, it went to San Francisco, it went to Toronto, and it's gone. But we're targeting high net worth individuals in our communities, and they happen to sit on the board of directors. And that's one of the investors that invested in us. And then 2 months later, we're signing a contract to develop a project for a $17.5 million wind farm for an ethanol plant. And that's what we can get by using local investors, is they're going to be able to see these opportunities, these savings, and like, you know what? We need to do this for the ethanol plant. We need to do it for the opera house. We need to do it for the law enforcement center. We're going to save money for these communities by bringing renewable energy in. And sometimes it needs to take those high net worth individuals to go, you know what, guys, this works. The hospital needs to look at this. And the kindergarten, the preschool, we want to save you some money, and I'm going to bring you this opportunity in order to save some money. Oh, and by the way, I'm also an investor. And so it gives that school or that college the comfort that, you know what, I got someone in my community that's going to invest in my solar project. So we're keeping the money in Storm Lake, we're keeping it in Cedar Rapids, we're keeping it in Iowa. So that money keeps turning over and over.
Yeah, exactly. Here in Cedar Rapids, I'm on Communications. It's a fiber optic company, and they're competing with Mediacom. And you think of Mediacom as being this giant national-wide conglomerate, and that I'm on is a kind of a startup right here in Eastern Iowa in Cedar Rapids that's building out. And then what happened is they got bought by Goldman Sachs out of New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Goldman Sachs now owns the local fiber distribution in Cedar Rapids and across a lot of cities and communities. So now every time I pay the bill, instead of giving it to Mediacom, I'm giving it to I'm On, who it's going right to a bank in New York City, and it's leaving the state of Iowa and it's gone.
Yeah.
So so this is an opportunity to put money into an Iowa investment where the money is going to stay in Iowa and better the state of Iowa and not go to New York City.
Yeah. We want to turn the flow. We might be investing in projects like one in Wyoming a few in Minnesota. I know we're talking to someone in South Dakota. And so our group of investors, and you don't have to be from Iowa, I just from rural America, we don't have all of these opportunities. And it's not necessarily because they're not there. We just sometimes are closed minded to these opportunities. And these farmers have wind turbines in their fields, and they're happy to get a $10,000 check till I tell them that that wind turbine that sits in your field makes $3,000 a day in revenue. They're like, really? Multiply that times 365 days of the year. That's the kind of revenue they're missing out on. You know how many turbines we got in the state of Iowa? It's incredible. There's $20 billion that's been invested in renewable energy in Iowa, and we got wind turbines on our driver's licenses and on our license plates, but only 1.5% of Iowans have invested in renewable energy. That's a pathetic number. It's absolutely appalling that we have all of this generation, but we're giving it to Warren Buffett, who owns Berkshire Hathaway. You know, they own 61% of the wind turbines. Alliant Energy owns a good portion, but 10% of the wind turbines that are owned that are in Iowa are owned by foreign utilities. So now we're letting it escape the country.
Yeah.
So when
I,
we
I was just going to say, I don't know if our listeners know that Mid-American Energy, who provides gas and electrical service in the state of Iowa, is owned by Berkshire Hathaway and is Warren Buffett. It's a Warren Buffett business. So, yeah, that you think Mid-American might be a local, but it's not. It's part of that national conglomerate. So this is an opportunity to, like you said, to reverse the flow and to invest in those other areas too. But to invest into Iowa and to invest in something that I think it's obviously it's something that the government is going. It's a hot button. It's what everybody's doing, and whether you invest into putting solar panels on your house, on your business, at your local school, where if the county does it, whatever it may be. But then also you can invest in a fund like yours and invest in these huge institutional grade investments that are going to be there for literally decades.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Goldman Sachs and Warren Buffett. Both of them have invested highly in renewable energy. BlackRock is another one that 40% of their portfolio, I think they have a $10 trillion portfolio, 4 trillion is invested in renewable energy because they understand where the market's going. It's not because of this tree hugger thing. I mean, that's what they think, that renewable energy is for tree huggers. No, absolutely. This is about independence. It's about freedom. There's no one deployed for a wind turbine in order to protect wind turbines in the Middle East. No, they're all U.S. based wind turbines, and there's no security guards around them. I mean, so this is about independence. This is about the American way of taking care of ourselves and not having to import anything. We are free because we have renewable energy. So, so Warren Buffett has a fund, but it's publicly traded. Berkshire Hathaway is essentially a fund that invests in businesses and then acquires them and brings them into the Berkshire Hathaway fund. Then Goldman Sachs is another one that's great because they're predicting $16 trillion. $16 trillion needs to be invested in this space, in the renewable energy space, because you can install it faster than any other energy source, and you can operate it for less cost than anything else. I mean, natural gas is another one that's a good sister to us. And very easily deployed in different areas. It doesn't have the variability. I mean, it has the variability that we don't in pricing. You get all over, but we are in a portfolio. No one invests in just one building. Energy is a portfolio, and we need natural gas, we need coal, we need nuclear, we need oil, but everyone's subsidized. Oil is permanent subsidization. Mm-hmm. Nuclear has more subsidization than anyone because they can't get an insurance policy. There's no one that's writing an insurance policy for a nuclear power plant. You know who writes the insurance policy for a nuclear power plant? The U.S.
government. Yeah.
The U.S. government. And you know who's paying that for the insurance policy? That's you and that's me. So, don't think that, without incentives, everything has been incentivized. So you might as well take advantage of these opportunities while they're available. Otherwise, someone else will.
Yeah, I know I live in Iowa and it's probably not cool to say, but corn is subsidized, soybeans are subsidized, ethanol is subsidized, and all of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome. I love it. So I want to know more. How can our listeners and viewers out there find out more information?
Yep. Our website is buffaloridgecapital.com. Nice and easy for everyone to be able to find. We also have a Facebook page and all the other social media stuff that's out there. And we have some great videos about our fund. I mean, we really want to keep money in Iowa because when Iowa money stays here, Iowa grows. When money stays here, our children don't leave the state. And that's one that I've said to Lieutenant Governor Adam Gregg is that our most expensive import in Iowa is our children. We export more children out of the state of Iowa, and it's not some weird uh, human trafficking. It's the jobs. They're going to jobs out of state because there's nothing here. And if we keep money in the state through an investment fund like yours or like mine, we're investing back into the state. We're investing in jobs, and we're keeping the children. And because we have incredibly intelligent kids. Our school systems are good. It's a great place to raise a family, but we keep exporting kids all the time because the jobs are outside of the state. So we need to do what we can in order to be able to keep the kids close to home, and not that we don't want to let them take off and on their own wings, but there's too many parents that I've heard that, oh, I have to spend $1,200 in order to see my grandkids in Boston. I'm like, why? Did you invest in local businesses? Did you invest in local opportunities? Oh, I bought stocks in the stock market, and how many publicly traded companies are in Iowa? Well, not that many. So
Yeah.
if they're investing in Iowa, they're investing in opportunities that keep our state growing. And that's why I started my own fund. And I mean, it hasn't been easy because, I mean, you talk to about renewable energy, and sometimes you get a blank stare. I don't get it. I mean, like, it's predictable. And that's what we want is be able to have an investment in vehicle like Buffalo Ridge Capital that we can pool our money together and grow opportunities, because very seldomly are we out prospecting. I don't think we ever prospect on our own. We're having someone introduce us an opportunity where we're going to come in and sell electricity to that opportunity, like Grinnell College. That was an introduction, and then where we went in and put together that solar project.
Yes, beautiful. I love it. I think Iowa's a great place to grow up, great place to live. I mean, I've got buddies from high school that left 25 years ago and they're coming back because
Yep.
they don't like where they've been living the last 25 years. So they're going to come back and retire back in Iowa because the lifestyle's better. This, like you said, the schools are awesome. It's a great place to be. So I've got my Buffalo Ridge Capital PPM, private placement memorandum. If you're an accredited investor, I highly recommend you take a look at it. And then if you're not an accredited investor, I would take a look at how you can get solar on your house, what you can do. Give Rob a call and talk about your farm, whatever it may be, about how you can still take advantage of solar. And then, there might be other avenues as well. So, Rob, thanks for coming on the show today and talking about it. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all that you do with the student money. There's so much to learn, and you absolutely could be wealthy if you just take the time, the opportunity to listen to Jeff and hear what he has, the wisdom that he has.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Jeff.
Yep, talk to you later. All right, guys, what did you think of our interview with Rob from Buffalo Ridge Capital? There's a lot of incentives, tax advantages, and the government really wants you to invest and install green, clean, renewable energy right here in the state of Iowa. All right, that's all the time we got this week. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, leave comments. Let me know what you think. We're trying to bring everything we can on entrepreneurship, investing, real estate investing, and millionaire mindset. So please let me know what you think. Give me some feedback. Let me know who you'd like to see right here on the podcast. And remember, this Sunday at the Cedar Rapids Public Library, we're holding our April Real Estate Investing Mastermind at 2 o'clock at Beams Auditorium in the Cedar Rapids Public Library. So if you can't be there, go check us out on our website at www.studentofmoney. I'm your host, Jeff Niemeyer, and remember, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I'll see you next week.